What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and it's Top 10 Thursday. You know, gaming is such an interesting art form. By picking up a controller, you can save kingdoms, steal cars, or fight terrible monsters. Personally, I love a good scare, but I've noticed that some of the most frightening experiences are often overlooked. This week, we're digging deep to find the creepy titles that no one talks about on my list of the top 10 horror game hidden gems. Number 10. Siren Blood Curse. When playing something truly terrifying, there are essentially two kinds of fear. Being afraid of the creatures chasing you and a more permanent sense of dread at dealing with the screwed up world you're trapped in. Siren Blood Curse expertly blends these styles of horror together by alternating between characters that are all lost in a haunted town on the same night. In one chapter, you could be a powerful dude carrying a baseball bat and feel rather safe, only to suddenly be thrown into the role of a small child wandering the city. There's never a chance to catch your breath or grow used to how messed up things are. You'll need to move fast and keep quiet while trying to escape this insane situation, because if even one creepy demon finds you, it's game over. Number 9. Cursed Mountain. Eric Simmons is a professional climber along with his brother Frank. When his sibling mysteriously vanishes during a job in the Himalayas, Eric decides to try and track him down on his own. Normally, that would be a pretty simple task, but this is more than just a large piece of rock. The locals believe that the mountain is in fact a goddess, and those that travel across it can walk between the realms of life and death. During our journey, we must battle evil spirits, fallen angels, and all sorts of darkness. What I enjoyed most about Cursed Mountain is that the story is closely tied to actual mythology. It gives everything a strange layer of realism, and at times leaves you wondering how many of those old legends might be true. Number 8. Illbleed. Imagine if you and your friends found tickets to a local horror house that had $1 million cash prize for anyone who could survive a trip through it. Would you be able to resist attempting it? Well, these guys certainly couldn't. It turns out the reason they're offering so much money is because it's completely impossible to live for even an hour inside this place. Illbleed is broken up into separate episodes where we basically have to explore different classic terror themes. From a twisted toy store to a burned down hotel or a factory that builds killer puppets, each scenario puts you in the middle of the worst spots and leaves you to figure out how to escape or die trying. Gameplay is incredibly unique, switching between third-person combat and a first-person detective mode. Our young heroes are caught in a pretty deadly trap, but if you're super careful, you might just make it till sunrise. Number 7. Penumbra Black Plague. By now, most of us have probably heard of Amnesia: The Dark Descent. It was a shadowy title where you were forced to solve puzzles in order to make it out of a castle. What some people don't know is that Frictional Games has been making projects in this style for years. Back in 2008, we got Penumbra Black Plague, an experience that aimed to harness the worst feelings of isolation. Philip is a man who just woke up in an unknown location with no guns, no lights, and no clear path of escape. By wandering around, we quickly discovered that this is a lab of some sort, and we aren't alone here. Twisted freaks patrol the hallways, so while searching for answers about what happened, you need to stay one step ahead of them. Even the slightest peek at these monsters is enough to give you nightmares. It's hard to tell if they're aliens or horribly tortured humans who have lost their minds from the pain. Without a proper way to defend yourself from these creatures, your only real option is to run, lock some doors, and hope you have a solution for the next problem. Number 6. Cold Fear. Something that can be really hard to pull off is a great zombie game. Making people unnerved by The Walking Dead takes a lot of talent, but Cold Fear manages to do it in some genius ways. To start with, the very environment around us can kill you just as easily as the corpses stalking you. We're trapped on a ship left adrift during a giant storm. With each change in tide or big wave, the boat rocks, and sometimes you have to choose between grabbing onto something or using your gun to shoot an attacker. Since you're stranded here, you have to explore this derelict vessel one deck at a time, looking for anyone still alive or possibly a computer to radio for help. The problem is, there's a parasite spreading on board that can infect people and turn them into flesh-hungry beasts fast. Those you once called friends could soon be foes trying to eat your face. It's probably a a good idea not to panic, or else you might end up falling over a railing and taking an icy swim. Number 5. Clock Tower. Here in America, the first title in this series we got was simply called Clock Tower and was released on the PlayStation. Little did we know that this was really the second game in the franchise. The original Clock Tower came out on the Super Nintendo back in 1995. While the graphics may be basic, this is a fascinating early example of survival horror. We are playing as Jennifer, an orphan from Norway who's just been adopted by a weird family up in the hills. Upon arriving at their mansion, a creepy little monster breaks into the house and begins hunting everyone down one by one with a large pair of scissors. Control in this game is like a classic point-and-click adventure. By using your cursor, you select where Jennifer can hide or what items she can use to try and stop the killer. There's a stark sense of desperation to every encounter with this mutated murderer. You can find translated copies of this game online for cheap, and honestly, I think it deserves a place in any hardcore horror fan's collection. Number 4. Kuon. A majority of scary stories take place in the modern day because it makes a character's terrifying struggle more relatable. For Kuon, they had a very different goal in mind, to put us as far from a normal scenario as possible and leave every facet of the experience as bizarre as it can be. Our story takes place in ancient Japan, focusing on 2 young women who are caught in the center of a series of strange events. Expect to see a lot of blood during your time with this game because it seems the creatures that stalk the darkness are willing to rip apart anyone they come across. Since this was developed by From Software, the makers of Dark Souls, a big aspect of this project is the fighting. Monsters can move very fast and it's hard to predict what exactly they'll do. Using magic spells can hold them off for a short time, but defending yourself can be extremely hard overall. What I enjoyed most about beating this was the haunting art style. It feels like we're walking through a super screwed up samurai film where no one gets a happy ending. Number 3. The Thing. Trust can be a delicate thing. Building it up with a stranger requires dedication and effort, but occasionally you get stuck teaming up with people you just can't trust. The setting for this game is an Arctic base where an alien shapeshifter has gotten loose. Now it's roaming the tundra, thirsty for blood. The story opens hours after this nasty freak has escaped. Every person you encounter has a chance of being the monster, but knowing what form it's taken is difficult to figure out. The only way to be 100% certain about somebody is to see them in action. People you meet can join your party and help you in battle, but never turn your back on them unless you want to end up as dinner. Woven into the core of gameplay is an interesting sanity system. By opening your menu, you can see how well your friends are keeping it together. Getting hurt by mutants or seeing some truly messed up carnage can permanently break their minds. If they go completely mad, they'll start trying to kill you or themselves, so make sure you keep some ammo in your gun even when hanging out with other humans. Number 2. Corpse Party. This title serves as a fantastic example of how you can't always judge a game by its art style. On the surface, this might appear to be a silly drama game or maybe a dating simulator, when in fact this is one of the most screwed up horror games ever made. During a class meeting at school, there's a terrible earthquake that ends up sinking the entire building underground. As the chaos unfolds, you're knocked out, and when you awaken, your friends have gone missing. To find them, you'll have to brave these twisted corridors and solve some pretty devious puzzles. What really made this game stand apart for me is that for roughly the first hour, it doesn't even feel like a horror game. People are joking around and having fun, treating this like a normal day. That is until the bodies start piling up. Never have I seen a game with such brutal scenes in it. Depending on how you handle each decision determines who lives and who dies. Even when you see the ending credits, you'll probably want to immediately start the whole game over to try again and see if you can get your favorite characters out of there. Number 1. Haunting Ground. Being alone and powerless is a special kind of fear. Having no one to back you up when things get rough is hard, but it can also teach you a lot about who you truly are as a person. This concept is what lies at the heart of Haunting Ground. Fiona is on her way home from college when she gets in a bad car accident. When she regains consciousness, it's not a hospital that greets her, but a dungeon. While breaking free, she meets a small dog who's also being held prisoner here. Now the two must join forces and form an uneasy bond if they want to escape this place in one piece. Gameplay is heavily centered around hiding and learning how your enemies behave. In the entire game, you never face more than 10 bad guys, but each one can easily rip you to shreds if you're caught. Because of this, Fiona needs to time her movements perfectly and use the skills of her animal companion. This slower pacing works brilliantly at creating a terrifyingly heavy sense of tension. This is one of the only games I've ever played where I found myself afraid to turn it back on after taking a break. For its dark story, fantastic environments, and downright disturbing monsters, I am awarding this my pick as the best horror game hidden gem. Did your favorite scare not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to play one of my favorite bad horror games. Death Crimson OX is so terrible, the back of the box actually compliments the main character on the ability to cook macaroni and cheese. Like, it doesn't matter that she's saving the world, she makes macaroni and cheese. This thing is just garbage, but I love it. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, maybe check out my last video. Please subscribe, and if you want, share this somewhere with your friends.